10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Discussing everything about the afterlife and spirit world. Coming to you all the way from Ireland, it's Sandie Byrne.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Life AfterLife with me, Sandie Byrne. Now, before I delve into the topic of this particular episode, I want to ask you all a favour, okay? I want your feedback. I know listener numbers have been growing and growing steadily over the last few months, and I'm really grateful for that. But I want your feedback, okay? And I'm going to be very honest with you all. Since the podcast came back online, okay, over the last few weeks, I've been suffering from a little bit of overwhelm, okay? I am a one-woman show, and sometimes I find it hard to fit everything in. And it has crossed my mind more than once over the last couple of weeks to give up the podcasts. Okay, it is a lot of work, and other than seeing listener numbers go up on the show statistics, I get the email every week, and I feel like I'm just sitting here talking to myself most of the time. Okay, so I need to know that you're here. So any form of questions, comments, any feedback of any sort is more than appreciated. Okay, I really do need it. Okay, and another alternative that I've been considering is maybe not doing as many interviews with guests as I have been doing, and just sticking with discussing mediumship topics and mediumship development. So would this be something that would interest you more as a listener? I need this feedback. I need to know in what direction I'm going to go, because, if I stick with maybe talking about mediumship development, I can do that whenever I get time, whereas if I have to make appointments with people for interviews, it's maybe a little bit more difficult, and I have to try and fit other stuff in, because like for example, I'm actually recording this like at 11 o'clock at night after a full day of readings. Okay, it just suited me. My energy's still high after doing readings, so I said, you know what, I'll do the podcast now, and it will help me bring my energy down after a long day of reading. So that's where I'm coming from. Okay, so let me know by email, WhatsApp, social media, smoke signals, I don't care. Any way at all, just let me know that you are there listening, and that it means something to you, and what kind of content that you enjoy listening to more. So I'm really looking forward to my inbox lighting up with lots of your comments over the next few weeks. Okay, now moving on to this particular episode. So today I want to talk to you a bit about how I deal with, or at least try to deal with, getting multiple people in during a reading. Okay, and it always starts with managing expectations, and I am always trying to manage people's expectations before readings, okay? Because some of you, and I'm including myself when I say that, we want to talk to all of our relatives in spirit every single time we go for a reading, okay, don't we? We want to know everything. So while it would be lovely to sit down for hours on end and chat endlessly with each and every one of them, it's just not possible, okay? It's not. And I talk a lot about energy on the podcast. And every single time I have a conversation about mediumship in general, okay? So, it's worth bearing in mind that I am human and I have a limited amount of energy. So when I'm working, I have to lift my vibration up to meet the energy and the vibration of spirit. And I can only sustain that for a limited amount of time, okay? So bearing this in mind, when I'm doing readings, I have to try to take control of a reading so that I can get meaningful messages for you. And trust me guys, your loved ones don't always play ball with this. So I do find it hard a lot of the time, okay? And those of you who have had readings from me in the past, you'll already know that I am consistently doodling and drawing while I'm reading, okay? I'm always scribbling away on a piece of paper. And there's a few reasons for this, okay? The main one is because I need to get down on paper what I'm getting from spirit before I lose it. Okay, because information can come and go so quickly sometimes. I don't always catch or remember everything that I'm being given by spirit. But the main reason that I'm writing stuff down is so that I can separate energies if needs be. Okay? Now, those of you who know me and you've heard me talk before, I always say that, connecting with spirit is like throwing open my front door and shouting out, "Does anyone want to come in for a chat?" Okay? It's literally that. And you're always going to get a stray or two who accept the invite and they saunter in and they say, I'm here, it's lovely, I'm in spirit, blah, 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 but we don't know who they are. Okay? But mostly I will get several people connected to you or whoever I'm sitting for or reading for. Okay? You're going to get several people that want to come in and say hello, tell you that they miss you. Okay? They might even say something, very personal, like they don't like the person that you're dating at the moment, or they don't like your new haircut, or blah, 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 whatever. Okay? All the good stuff that relatives tend to not hold back on. So when these people are coming in, I'm trying to separate them so that I can make sense of what I'm getting from them. Okay? Now, I was trying to think of an example whereby I could describe this to you. And the best way that I can describe it is like cheese strings. Okay, if any of you, have kids, maybe you know that, cheese strings come in a packet. They're all, individually wrapped in pieces of plastic, but all these pieces of plastic are joined onto each other. They're perforated, okay, and you rip them apart. Okay, like cat treats maybe, or dog treats, where they come and you have to rip them apart. It's the very same. If you imagine that those little packets are like the way that your loved ones come in, and I'm trying to rip them apart and separate them, into individual little energies so that I can make sense out of them. Okay? It's not always easy. And I have a few different techniques for this, which I have discussed many times with my spirit guides. Okay? But I am going to say that not all of your loved ones, not all of my loved ones follow directions. Okay? Now, I'm joking a little bit because I don't really expect spirit to follow rules. Okay? Like, we have to bear in mind, and I kind of think of them like little puppies, okay, when they come through. They're so excited to be here. They're so excited to, make this connection with you. Okay? They all want to talk at once. They all want to make themselves known before they miss their opportunity or before the energy gets closed off. Okay? So I have this one thing that usually works for me. Okay? And that is, now this might sound complicated for some of you, but for me, if someone is coming through from your father's side of the family, I ask them to come through on your right side, which would be my left. Okay, so I see them coming around the left side of you, which is by your right side, okay, because I'm facing you. And if they're from your mother's side, I ask them to come in on your left, which would be my right, okay. For me, this works. It sounds complicated, but it works. It took me a while to sort this system out with my spirit guides and to get it working. It's not completely fail-safe. Okay, not everybody will abide by the rules. And, sometimes we get in-laws and stuff, which just, they dance to their own tune. Spouses and partners generally stand behind you, siblings in front, so I have this little system, okay? Each medium will have their own system. I'm not saying you have to do it this way, but each medium has their own system that they have devised with their own spirit guides, okay? So it's, as I say, it's not fail-safe. It's more like a rule of thumb type thing, okay? So I can try to identify who I'm speaking to, especially if I'm using clairvoyance, okay? Clairsentience for me is a lot easier, okay? But I can't make, spirit use clairsentience if it's not who they are or how they communicate. Now, if you're not familiar with the clairvoyance, clairsentience, and all the different clairs, okay, and what they mean, please do go back and have a listen to episode 2 of the podcast, where I explain all of them in a lot more detail, okay? I'm not going to go into it here, but I've done it in episode 2 of the podcast, I believe it was. Yes, it was episode 2. Okay, now names are great. Okay, we all identify people with names, don't we? Okay, and everyone asks me, what's her name? What's his name? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to tell you guys that I don't remember the names of people that I've lived beside for 20 years. Okay? I'm not going to remember the name of someone that I've just met in my head. So, and I'm not being smart saying that. I'm just bad with names. That's who I am. Okay? I have my kids' own names tattooed on my arms that I don't forget. It's just not my strength. It's not my superpower. Okay? And because I'm bad with names, with in my relationships with people in life, that's going to translate, and it does translate across to how we communicate with people in spirit. So I have to look for other ways to identify people. Okay? So for example, I did a reading a little while back, and my customers, both her grandparents came through, both her grandmothers came through, the 2 grannies came through in the reading. Now she had a close relationship with both of these grannies. Okay, they all lived near each other. Her parents knew each other all their lives. Okay, they grew up as next door neighbours. Okay, as next door as we can be in the countryside in Ireland. Okay, but they were neighbours. So they knew each other all their life. And, you know, they got into a relationship, you know, in their late teens and have stayed together since. And they built a house, you know, beside where both of their sets of parents lived. With the lovely result that their children had a close relationship with both sets of grannies. Or grandparents, we'll say. Okay. So, in this particular situation, I did get names, but both grannies were called Mary. Okay, this is Ireland. Okay, there was a lot of Marys, especially going back generations. Okay, so getting the names in this situation was of no help in trying to distinguish which granny was which. So I had to go deeper. Okay, I had to find out something else, you know, that was memorable, something that meant something to my customer, you know, so that I could distinguish one granny from the other. Okay, so they ended up being the granny that used to knit and the granny that used to sing. Quite literally. That was the way I told them apart. They were both grannies, they both lived beside their granddaughter, and they both were called Mary. So I had to go deeper and deeper and find something that, you know, set them apart. And quite literally, when, you know, it didn't matter which one of them was, but either of them were coming through to say something, you know, they either showed me a pair of knitting needles or the singing grandmother would sing the first few words of her message. Okay? Literally, it worked like that. And it worked. Okay? So the point that I'm trying to get across to you here, and I'm probably not getting it across as well as it sounds in my head, so let me know. But I am trying to get across to you the point that when names don't work, and we have two impatient spirits that won't stand back and let the other have the floor for a few minutes, then I have to be creative and find out something about them that you would immediately recognise and use as the distinguishing factor between them. Okay, I hope I'm making sense here, guys. I needed some way to tell them apart because both of these grannies were like second mothers and second and third mothers, if you like, to the person that I was reading for. And, you know, both called Mary, you know, both lived in the countryside in Ireland, blah, 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 blah. And so I had to find something that set them apart from each other. You know, they both liked tea, you know, they both liked gardening, you know, all the normal things that, you know, you're kind of talking about granny. So I had to find one thing. You know, one granny didn't knit at all and the other one, well, she could sing, she wasn't any good at it, you know, whereas my customer always remembered one of her grannies particularly singing to her a lot as a child, okay, whereas the other one, she still had items that her granny had knit for her when she was a child. Okay, so these were the distinguishing factors, the things that she remembered about them, and that's what we used to tell one from the other. Okay, so this is the kind of information that we're always looking for. Okay, now the hard part about this can be, you know, that despite the fact that I work really, really hard to get these distinguishing factors, I'm always going to have a customer who from time to time, you know, has a particular grandmother, someone, loved one in mind. And despite all of the valid information I give them that I'm actually talking to, for example, their grandmother on their mother's side of the family, they will try to make everything that I'm saying fit the grandmother on their other side, the dad's side, because that's who they came to the reading hoping to connect with. So, you know, we always have one person in particular that we have in the front of our mind that we want to connect with. And therefore we're trying to make everything fit to that one person. So in those particular instances, I have to be strong and remain true to the information that I'm getting from Spirit. You know, because trusting that what Spirit give me, you know, is right. That's the most fundamental part of my mediumship and anyone's mediumship. I spoke about that a couple of episodes ago. Okay, Spirit are always right, so I have to go with it. You know, and sometimes I have to insist that, no, I know that, you know, maybe this other granny liked gardening as well, or maybe this other granny, you know, had a birthday in March and then the other one had a birthday in April or something, that the birthdays weren't that far apart. But, you know, we have to go with the way Spirit is giving it to us. And inevitably, it turns out to be spot on. Okay, so we have to go with it. I'm not saying the other granny won't come through, but sometimes we have to acknowledge the granny that we are getting through so that we can say hello to her, we can get the information and get the message and then move on. Okay, so we have to trust that what Spirit is giving us is what's right. Okay. Now, another point when this can get really, really difficult is when I have a reading where I have two people present. Okay. Because when you have two completely different people in a room together, you've got two completely different energies. Okay, then you've also got my energy and you've also got the energy of spirit. So if you've got two people in a room, you really have 4 different energies. Okay, so for example, what I mean by this, I could have 2 siblings together for a reading. Okay, and ultimately they come together because they want to connect to their mother or their father, both maybe a sibling or whatever. They want to connect. They have somebody in particular that they want to connect with. But if you think logically about it, both of those siblings will have lives that are outside of their family or birth connection with each other. Okay, each one might be married with in-laws of their own. They have friends of their own that they've lost. Okay, and these in-laws and friends that come through they only have connection to one of the people that I have in the room. They've absolutely no other connection or relationship with the other sibling. Okay, so you're going to get a lot of crossed connections. Okay, so for example, 2 siblings, but you might have one of them who is a mother-in-law in spirit, who is a very strong energy, and she comes in first and she takes over the reading and goes into detail about lots of stuff that has no consequence to the other sibling that's in the room. Okay, so I still have to allow that mother-in-law time to get her message across while still making the reading meaningful for both customers. Okay, they are exhausting readings, let me tell you. Okay. And I understand that people want to share readings. I'm not giving out about that at all. I'm just trying to explain to you the mechanics of it. I know that some people are too nervous to come to a reading on their own. I totally get it. They want to have someone else with them for the reading. That's fine. But you have to realise that you're opening the door to other energies too. Okay, I'm opening the door to your energy and anybody that's connected to that. I'm opening the door to the person who's beside you and their energy, and whoever comes in connected to that. And despite the fact that you might be siblings or cousins or whatever with the person, maybe you're just friends, but one of your energies is going to be stronger than the other, and one is ultimately going to take over that reading. Okay, it's going to happen. Okay, I'm not saying we won't get, your mother, father, sibling, whoever we want through, but it's not going to be all about that one person. And you're going to have a point either at the beginning or the end of the reading where the energy veers off and we're talking more to one than the other. Okay. A little while back, I did a reading for a lady. Okay, and she'd never had a reading before. Okay, I think actually she may have got it as a present. And she'd never done anything like this before. So she asked her daughter to sit with her for the reading. Okay, it was an online reading. It was all good, and sometimes even in online readings, people have somebody else in the room, maybe that's sitting behind the camera or out of shot of the camera, and I can still pick up on that person's energy, okay? But in this case, I knew she was there. It was all good. The lady needed her daughter with her. It's all good, okay? However, it was the daughter's father-in-law and mother-in-law who came in really, really strong at the beginning of the reading. Okay, it turned out that there was a whole family situation going on with the daughter's husband and his siblings and everything after a recent passing. So, this was all connected with her. She was very close with her in-laws and the extended family. So by having her there, it opened up the energy for the in-laws to come through. Okay, and as I said, the mother had never done anything like this before, so her energy wasn't as open as the daughter's energy. Okay, so the daughter's energy was open, the energy of her in-laws was much more open to communicating in this way, whereas her mother was sitting there hoping to connect with her late husband. And when we got into it later on, her husband was a very quiet man. Okay, and he didn't want to interrupt his daughter-in-law's or his daughter's in-laws while they were talking. Okay, he was just a polite man. He always, and we got to this in the reading, he was somebody that would always stand back and wait for, a moment of silence to open up before he spoke. Even when he was here and in a room full of people, he'd always wait for that energy to just calm down a minute and then step forward. Okay, so in this instance, I actually had to ask the daughter to step out of the room for a few minutes so that I could allow her dad to step forward and connect with her mother. Okay, does that make sense to you? Okay, don't we all know people here, living people in life, who have very strong energies and tend to take over conversations and not allow the quieter people to speak? Okay, well, that can happen with spirit connection too, believe it or not. People don't change their personalities just because they've passed over to spirit. Okay, they're still the same chatterboxes that they were when they were living. Okay, now it's all in good spirit. There's nothing that I'm talking about is negative. I'm just trying to get across to you the different personalities and, you know, the different communication techniques we have, that it carries over to spirit. So you really have to think about who your loved one was when you're booking a reading. You have to be aware of the person, or maybe you're looking to connect with more than one person, the people. You have to be aware of who you're hoping to connect with when you come for a reading. And bear in mind, you know, whether they're quiet people or they're not. Like, do they need space on their own before they'll open up? Okay? As I say, don't forget, you know, that if you have a loved one in spirit who was shy when they were alive, then they're already going to have a difficult time opening up to your medium who's a stranger. Like, I'm a medium, but I'm a stranger to your loved ones. So if I'm trying to connect with someone who's really shy, sometimes it can be like, you know, trying to get blood out of a stone, even with just you and me in the room. Let alone dealing with, you know, the energy of your cousins or your neighbours or your friends or, you know, your in-laws that you've asked to sit with you, you know, for moral support. I'm not saying you can't ask them to sit with you. I'm just saying that, you know, you're always increasing the energy that you're bringing into a reading, and therefore you're increasing the chances of other people coming through. You're opening up the energy to a wide spectrum, and you may not get, you probably will get the reading, but I'm just saying, you know, you may have to sift through a lot of the extended relatives or other people's relatives in order to get to the person that you want. Okay? Now, no one's trying to sabotage your reading. It's quite the opposite. Okay, but spirit will just take any opportunity to connect with their loved ones. Okay, they'll take the opportunity as and when they can. Okay, I always remember a reading that I was doing in Dublin. Okay, it was some years ago when I first started doing readings publicly. Okay, it was in someone's house in inner city Dublin, and I was scheduled there, you know, to do readings at like a house party. And I think I was booked to read for about 5 people during the day. Okay. And during the afternoon, I was reading for the lady of the house, and I had this guy pop into a reading. God, you know, I still remember his energy to this day. He literally came in and hit me like a bus. Okay, now that was connected to how he died. It was an accident. But literally when his energy came in, it was like I was hit by a bus. It was almost like, you know, that, you know, in the film Ghost, where the energy actually goes into the lady and it's like this whoosh of air. It felt like that. Okay. He came in. Obviously this guy was in spirit, he wasn't alive, okay, but he came in and he gave all of this information to me, and I relayed all of this information to the lady that I had in there with me at that moment, okay. Now, after a few minutes it clicked with her. She actually did know the gentleman that I was speaking to, but he wasn't a relative of hers. In fact, he had no connection to her whatsoever. He was actually a neighbour from 3 doors down who had passed away after an accident, okay. Now, this was in the city. It was a row of like terraced houses, so they were all very close to each other, okay? And this man knew, he felt the energy, because, you know, I was in just a couple of houses up from him, okay? Whereas he was down sitting in the house with his mum. Then he could see all the spirits and people were coming to the house, and he knew that there was energy, spirit energy down here, and he wanted in on it, okay? And he came down and he took the opportunity to get a message to his mother that he was okay, that he'd actually made it to the spirit world and he really wasn't dead at all, okay? So anyway, I gave that message, and when I say we, I mean me and the gentleman. There wasn't anybody else there, but I gave the message to the lady and said, look, if you get the opportunity, you might give this message to this gentleman's mother, because obviously he needs her to know this. So immediately after that lady's reading, I was reading for somebody else. So she walked down the street, knocked on the door of the neighbour and told her what had just happened. Okay. With the result that that boy's mother then obviously wanted a reading. So that day I ended up doing, I think, like 9 readings instead of the 5 that I had planned to do. Okay. And, you know, I think that was the day I cut down on doing like house parties like that. I think I stepped for like 2 solid days afterwards. It was like ridiculous amount of energy. But I was able to do it, thank God, and just get that message across to the mother that her son was still with her. Okay. So things happen for a reason. But it really is, like I said earlier, you know, when you're looking to connect with spirit, you're kind of throwing open the front door and asking anyone who wants to come and chat to step inside. Okay. But when you do that, you have to be prepared that unexpected people can come through too. You may not have expected, like that lady did not expect the neighbour to come through. In fact, the readings that I was doing, they were booked before his accident, you know, so she wasn't expecting him to come through at all. Okay. Now, it does get more difficult and more complicated and more distressing, when we get into talking about abusers or estranged family members, I'm not going to get into that here. But, these people too, they can come in and have come in during readings. Okay, so, that can be very hurtful. Some people aren't open to communicating with these people. I totally get it, I'm not sure, like I have family members that I was estranged from. I'm not sure that I would necessarily be open to getting a message from them if they didn't want to talk to me in life. After all, why would they want to come through after they died? But anyway, we spoke about this in previous episodes about the lenses and stuff. Okay, anyway, for all of the reasons that I've just given and all of the examples that I've just given, okay, that's why I ask people to be open to anything during a reading. Okay, don't close down your energy and think, well, I'm only going to talk to my mum and my granddad and my second cousin John. Okay, be open to anyone. Okay, we all have one or two or three people, that we specifically want to connect with when we book the reading. But you have to be open to anyone. Okay, because no medium can guarantee a particular person. Everything depends on the energy on the day. Okay, now we generally get good results. I'm not saying that we don't, but be open. Okay, because you'd be surprised the person that will come through that will have the most amazing message that will help you to move on from something. So be open to everything. Now, I do understand that the concept of managing energy may be confusing to some of you who are listening. Okay, and I know that the mechanics of mediumship, or connecting to spirit isn't something that a lot of you will want to understand in depth. Okay, but even as a customer or a sitter, as we tend to call you, I would ask you all to be mindful of the personality of the person that you're looking to connect with. Okay, because this will give you an indication of whether or not they are likely to come through and talk freely. Whether you have another family member or a friend with you or not. Okay, will they come through and talk? And the easiest example I was able to think of, to give you about this is, when you go to see a live demonstration of mediumship, okay, if you've ever been to see a medium where they're on stage and they're giving random messages to people in the audience, okay? So when I've done this in the past, when I've been the one on stage giving messages, okay, I absolutely always will, it's inevitable that this will happen, that someone will come up to me after the show or they'll message me or email me in the days afterwards asking me why their loved one didn't come through. They'll say, I was there, I was in the audience, it was his birthday, it was his anniversary, I had his picture in my pocket, whatever it might be. And, they've done everything to try and bring the energy of their loved one through. So my answer to this question is always the same. If your loved one wouldn't have got up on stage and talked in front of an audience when they were alive, then why would you expect them to do it just because they've passed into spirit? Okay? They're the same person, the same energy, the same personality. Some people are just shy. They don't like talking about emotions and they won't talk about family business in front of strangers. It's just who they are. Then again, some people say to me, oh no, he would talk to anybody, he'd have got up on stage, he'd have talked to me. Okay, in your opinion, he may have talked to you, which is fine. I'm not saying, because I don't know your loved one, they might. But what's the circumstances of it? Okay, if you have an audience of, even if it's just 100 people, each of those people are going to know on average 10 other people in spirit. So, and that given night where you've got 90 minutes, 2 hours to do readings, each one of your loved ones is fighting with about at least 1,000 other spirits to be heard. And some spirits aren't strong enough to make their way to the front of the queue. Okay, they're just not that kind. And some of them are just, really, empathic to other people. And they're like, okay, well, this person, they're still grieving, they need the message more than my loved one. Or this person, it's their anniversary today, so they should come through. Some people are just in tune with other people and they're happier to wait their turn, but then, the energy runs out, the medium gets tired, the show is over, we're all being kicked out of the theatre or whatever it might be. So, then they don't get their message across. So there's a few different things that you have to bear in mind in this situation. I went to a mediumship show recently. I hadn't been to one in years. Okay, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much. And for the first time ever, I actually got a message. Okay, I did. I was so happy I got a message. And, you know, some of you listening might have been there. One of the people that came through in my message had only died 2 days before. Okay, it was an extended family member on my husband's side, but he came through and he was messaged and his name was given. Okay, anyway, off topic. But during the show, okay, there was a family in front of me and they were waiting for their loved one to come through. Okay, I knew he was there, but he didn't come through and communicate with them. So at the end of the show, I couldn't help myself. I know, and I'm probably a pain in the neck doing this. But I just tapped her on one of the family members on the shoulder and I said to her, you know, I have this gentleman here. He's been with you the whole show. He died like this. He was young. He was this age and blah, 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 blah. And I need to let you know that he was with you throughout the whole show. But he told me that he didn't want to leave you here in the audience on your own and go up on stage and talk to the medium because you were too anxious, you were too nervous about it. He told me that, you know, your anxiety was flaring up. And she acknowledged, she said, I get it. I suffer with anxiety. Okay, and she said, I probably wouldn't even have put my hand up even if he had come through the medium on stage. Okay. So I can work out as many systems with my spirit guides as I like to connect with your loved ones. But you also have to acknowledge who they are and you have to make the environment right in order for them to connect with you. Okay? I hope that all of this made sense. It is late at night when I'm talking about this, so I'm probably rabbiting on a little bit, but I hope that you're still with me. As with everything, I'm always open to comments and questions, you know, about the topic that we've just discussed. You know, because I always assume that people know or understand certain aspects of mediumship, okay? So I need you to remind me sometimes that you didn't all grow up with, you know, several mediums in your family who answered all your questions, you know, as you were growing up. So let me know if I need to go deeper into some aspect of this or if it made sense. That's why I'm asking for your feedback, guys. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode and I will see you in the next episode of Life After Life. So until then, take care and stay safe.
Discussing everything about the afterlife and spirit world.